her faux pas, she offered him a brilliant smile. "Lady Portia James. If I am not mistaken, I believe our mothers attended the same finishing school."
"Indeed,"
he muttered, before he glanced purposefully over her shoulder, in a not very subtle indication that he wished for their conversation to be over. Unfortunately, Lady Portia either did not receive the hint, or she simply chose to ignore it. "I can assure you this is quite out of character for me, and, well, a bit presumptuous, if I am being honest, but—" She hesitated, and Evan felt an unmistakable prickling of desire when she sank her teeth into her plump bottom lip. "Would you care to dance?"
"Dance?"
he repeated, so startled by the request that he nearly spilled his champagne. Women, especially women who looked like Lady Portia James, rarely spoke to him, let alone asked him to dance. And yet here she was, standing right in front of him, doing precisely that. In hindsight, Evan realized he should have known then and there that something was amiss, that Lady Portia, for all of her guilelessness, was not nearly as sweet or innocent as she appeared. But as he'd gazed down into her cornflower blue eyes, he had felt something he hadn't felt in a very, very long time. So long, in fact, that it took him a moment to recognize what it was. Hope.
"All right,"
he said gruffly, setting aside his flute of champagne on a nearby planter in order to take her arm. If she noticed his stiff gait as they approached the outskirts of the dance floor, she made no mention of it. But he still released a quiet sigh of relief when the quartet of musicians sitting high on a dais began to play a slow, subdued waltz. Before the fall, Evan had been lively and quick, a veritable dervish of athleticism and energy. After it, there had been several doctors who had ominously predicted he would never walk again. The late Duke of Wycliffe, determined that his one and only heir would not grow up to be a cripple, had scoured the country until he'd found a physician who told him what he wanted to hear, that his son would, in fact, regain full control of his legs and, with time and exercise, might even make a full recovery. After years of agonizingly painful therapies that required the use of wooden braces and a barbaric pulley system, Evan had managed to walk again. But it was clear, even then, that he'd never be what he once was, much to the Duke's everlasting disappointment.
"I apologize."
Evan's scars stood out in vivid white contrast against his tanned skin as his face flushed a deep, mottled red when he stepped on Lady Portia's tiny foot for what felt like the 100th time since they'd begun their waltz.
I haven't danced in quite some time."
"It's fine," she assured him, but she couldn't quite disguise the wince of pain that flashed across her features when he tried to turn her in a circle and his leg locked in place, causing their shins to collide.
"This is a mistake."
But when he went to disengage himself, she clung fast to his wrist, nails sinking into his sleeve cuff with surprising tenacity. "I think you're doing splendidly, Your Grace. Truly," Lady Portia insisted when Evan made a scoffing sound under his breath. "I can only imagine how difficult it must be for a man of your stature to complete such intricate steps and turns." Her mouth curved. "Particularly when your partner is significantly lacking in height. I fully accept all of the blame." A man of his stature? The way she spoke almost made it seem as if she didn't notice his physical impairments. But that couldn't be true, could it? Again hope stirred inside of Evan's chest, warming the protective layer of ice he'd used to shield his heart against all of the stares and the whispers and the unwanted pity. Maybe, just maybe, Lady Portia was the sort of woman he'd started to fear did not exist. The kind who could see past his ruined exterior to the man beneath. The kind who saw him for what he was, not for what he was not. When the dance ended, he met her flawless curtsy with an awkward bow, lips twisted in a grimace of discomfort as liquid fire shot up through his ruined leg. The waltz had been more demanding than he'd anticipated, and already he was dreading the inevitable ice bath and stretching that was to come. But such therapies, albeit horrifically painful, were necessary if he wanted to retain the limited range of motion that he still had left, which he did, particularly now that he had a new incentive to do so.
Lady Portia,